Pawn to e4. Pawn to d3. Pawn to d3. Queen to d1. Check. Pawn to e2. Queen to e2. Check. Pawn to f3. Queen to e8. Knight to g4. Pawn to d1. Rook to h2. Rook to c1. Rook to d2. Pawn to d5. Knight to e3. Queen to a4. Pawn to c3. Rook to c3. Knight to d1. Rook to f3. Knight to b2. Queen to b3. Bishop to g2. Rook to e3. Pawn to e5. Rook to e5. Check. King to g4. Bishop to b2. Rook to d5. Rook to d5. Bishop to d5. Queen to d5. Pawn to e6. Queen to d1. Check. King to g3. Queen to e1. Check. King to g4. Queen to e4. Check. King to h5. Queen to e5. Check. King to g4. Queen to h8. Knight to f8. Queen to g8. Check. King to h3. Queen to g1. Knight to d7. Pawn to c6. Knight to b8. Rook to b8. Pawn to e6. Queen to h1. Check. King to g4. Queen to f1. Pawn to d7. Bishop to e2. Check. King to g3. Queen to g1. Check. King to f4. Queen to d4. Check. King to g5. Queen to h8. Pawn to c6. Queen to h7. Pawn to b7. Rook to h8. Pawn to d6. Bishop to h5. King to h5. Queen to h6. Check. King to g4. Queen to h4. Check. King to f3. Rook to f8. Check. King to g2. Queen to g4. Check. King to h1. Rook to h8. Checkmate.